Hey guys, welcome to the Neglected Podcast. This podcast is not to change your mind, but to invite you into somebody else's narrative. This is a podcast to give a voice to the neglected. It is also an opportunity for all of us to engage.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Nick Schultz here for the Neglected Podcast, here to give a voice for the neglected and have an opportunity for everyone else to get involved. Like always, with my producer, Quinn.
Hello.
What's going on, man? You feeling all right?
Yeah, doing good. It's the midweek.
Okay. We're
midweek thing.
About to get deep over here. All right, We'll talk later.
Happy Wednesday.
And you all hopefully know that voice by now. It is the deep, sexy, authentic Rwandan voice of my man, Theo.
Thank you so much for having me, Nick.
What's up, man? Theo is back.
Yes, sir.
So the last time we talked, kind of got your story. We were talking about Rwanda, all that happened there with your life and escaping the genocide, what you've been up to now. And that was before I went on my trip to Rwanda.
Right.
And now I'm back from Rwanda. You've got the flag just over your shoulder there, so a little jealous it's over on your side and not my side. But something really cool that you've been doing too is, dude, you like totally branding yourself now, man, having this sweet logo and stuff.
Yes.
You gave me a shirt too. Check it out.
I did. I was really trying to catch it before you left so you could actually wear it in Rwanda.
Oh, no.
Because I was like, oh, man, that would be so cool for Nick to be wearing a Rwandan shirt from a Rwandan person. And it'd be so literal.
It would be. Because I'm also Rwandan.
Yeah, so. Exactly. It would have been literal. But
it's sweet, man. Thank you.
I completely did not catch you on time.
And I brought you another little coin from Rwanda too, just so you can have that added to your Rwandan piggy bank that I'm sure you have.
I actually do remember the first haircut that I gave you. You actually paid me in Rwandan money.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it was the best. I would say the most the highest I've ever gotten paid.
That's cool.
With the actual least amount of money.
Yeah, with the actual least amount of money.
I think I gave you like $2 and 15 cents or something.
I think the sentimental meaning behind it was a greater value than the actual cash. Good,
because I'm pretty sure I didn't actually have any American money at that time when I got the haircut. So
that's all right. I mean, I was gonna give it to you for free anyway, so it wasn't.
Well, I appreciate that. And like I said before, you are the only person that I've let cut my hair in the past probably 15 years because I do my own hair. One, for money, and two, because it's just something to do.
It looks great. I mean, listen, it takes a different type of talent for somebody to be able to cut their own hair.
Or you just don't care.
Well, that too. But listen, like the reason why I even got into barbering is because, pardon that, should have probably put that on mute. But the reason why I got into barbering was actually, by the way, that was a Lion King soundtrack.
I know.
Because I was prepping to go watch the movie. Hasn't seen the movie yet. But anyway, I was gearing myself up for it. So the reason why I started cutting my own hair was actually because my barber would always mess me up, and I would always have to go home and fix it.
Same here, dude.
I was like, you know what? Listen, I'm not gonna spend $20, like pay somebody $20 to come back home and fix my own hair. It's like going out to eat and like having to come home and cook out, cook your meal that you just bought, like that was supposed to be cooked. So I was like, I'm not doing that. So
that's good, man. We'll talk about kind of giving back, not only to yourself and giving yourself haircuts, but giving to other people as well. But yeah, man, dude, I missed you. And I do want to let everybody know, like, kind of this episode, we've already done one with you, talking about your story, your narrative, all that kind of stuff. This one, we want to do a little bit of follow-up and also answer a question for people that have listened to some of the episodes of, like, and it's really good hearing people's stories,
right? But
now having some tangible ways to get into other people's lives, and like, how do you do that on a personal standpoint? How do you engage in conversation? All those kind of things. And you and I will talk about that a little bit. But
awesome.
But yeah, man, I did just get back from Rwanda. Interesting thing was, this is my 6th time going. Whew. And my wife asked me when I got back, she's like, what did you learn this time? What do you think God was showing you? Right. What's your takeaway? All that kind of stuff. And I was like, honestly, I still don't know from this experience. It's like everything that I've previously experienced happened again. All the physical, emotional, spiritual stuff was very much the same, just grew more.
Right.
but I really believe like this time coming back, it's now kind of go time implementing all the things that I have learned.
That's actually good.
So, this podcast is being one of them.
Right.
It's like, how do I take those things that are so important that people really need, from forgiveness, reconciliation, not being afraid to enter into the past and story and all that kind of stuff to move forward with difficult issues, and doing that. So not only in my work and my personal life, and kind of groups we lead in our family, but this as well. It's just like time to live it out instead of just consuming, which I have been giving back a little bit. Now it's just, okay,
right.
It's go time.
I mean, honestly, I think when you look at the past 6 times that you've gone, and I guess to borrow the walls, like walking around the wall 7 times, it's kind of like the first 7 times or the first 6 times people were like, listen, God, like, I know you gave us these instructions very specific. But it's like,
I gotcha.
Like we've been walking around like this thing for at least 5 to 6 times now. Like, something's got to happen. And so, but I think you going so many times, it has given you the opportunity to kind of what you said, to get better and better. But this podcast honestly did come from that heart, because if that was the case, this podcast would have been done 6 years ago, right? But it took all those experiences for you to be able to do it this year, 2019, and looking at it, it's honestly one of those things that you've had in your heart, that you've had in your mind, but not until you actually started moving forward with it. Kind of like what you just said, it's time to put things onto action. And your part was telling their stories, telling the people here, telling the local stories, listening to the local stories, actually getting people involved. So, I mean, it might have took 5 times for you to go to Rwanda to be able to, to get to this point, but
and I want to go more.
Yeah, but you're here. So I mean, I honestly believe that, this is gonna only produce something else. So it's like every step has produced something, and this is where we at. So
well, that's cool, because you get to be a part of it as well, which I'm excited about, and telling your story about ways that you started giving back too.
Right.
And the unique thing is, kind of, we'll get into this, but like when you just start trying to give back and not overthink everything so much, as like, man, this is what I want to do. I want to start my own nonprofit. I want to do all these big things and get all these people on board and have money to do it. Like when you just actually do stuff,
right? Yeah.
Then all of a sudden other things come along, like this podcast, which I think I've said almost every podcast, I didn't want to do it. Don't like hearing my voice, and it's not my thing. Right. It really isn't. But like you said, when stuff happens and you start trying to live it out and get in other people's lives, and opportunities come, and then it's whether you want it and you're ready for it and all that kind of stuff. But I do want to say, before I went to Rwanda, I'm not sure it was before or after. I think it was before.
Which time? This time?
Yeah, this time.
Okay.
Or maybe it was right when I got after. You had the opportunity possibly to go to Rwanda.
Right,
I think it was after I got back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so Theo comes and tells me, he's like,
it was like the week before you left.
Oh man, something crazy. You're like, man, I want to take you to lunch. I might have this opportunity. I'm like, what is going on? And then he sits me down at IHOP, of course, he's got to have a stack of pancakes.
Only the best pancakes around.
And so, and you're like, man, I might be going to Rwanda with my mom and going there. And my wife knows I want to go back at some point, and might be with you or with something else. And I got so pumped, man. Because if people haven't listened to the first podcast, just the fact that you used to live there, you were young, remember a little bit, and the last time you were there was escaping genocide.
Right.
To go back as an adult and experience all that would have been incredible. Like, I want to experience it with you, but I just want you to experience it in general.
Right, yeah.
And so kind of tell me the emotions of what that was like, getting ready to go back to that place.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden where we're at now with it.
So when everything came down, my grandmother was sick, and we wanted to, well, me and my siblings wanted to send my mother back to Rwanda. So we talked about it. We were in discussion like, okay, how do we get the money together? How do we do all that? All the logistical stuff that we're talking about. So that's kind of when, after we have formed thought, that's when, I contacted you and went out to go eat some of the best pancakes in Savannah, IHOP. And so after that, we kept discussing it, talked to my mom a few more times, and she decided that she didn't want to go. She said it was too much, which I completely understand, because the night before I was to call her and have the conversation, like, Mom, hey, I'm gonna be, I want to go with you, or I will go with you for protection, or just to have somebody, in the immediate family with you. I had a nervous breakdown. Yeah, it was one of those things that I literally have never had before, because it finally hit me the amount of pressure that was, right? Because now I'm not gonna be going to go have fun, or I'm not gonna be going for leisure. I'm gonna be going to protect my mother, right? Or to be with my mom.
And when you say protect, are you worried about her physical safety?
Right. Well, physical safety, that, and also because when, I guess, in a physical sense, there is still a lot of things that's happening on the back end of of politics.
I gotcha.
And so it was more of, okay, how do I do this? Yeah, I'm not necessarily one of those. I'm not a macho person, right? But I've been deployed a few times. I understand what it takes to protect somebody, and I'm able to do that. But when it's your own mother, it's different when it's somebody else. But when it's your own mother, it gets a little tough. So definitely had a nervous breakdown. Talked to my wife about it. I was like crying like a little baby. I was like, what in the world is wrong with me? But I realized that the thoughts and ideas and all that stuff that was coming, it was all in my subconscious from a long time ago, things that I never really deeply dealt with.
Which we talked about in the first podcast.
Right.
And I was like, man, how do you deal with all that? Did you?
Right. So going through all that, thinking that, okay, I've dealt with it. And then all of a sudden, boom. Ooh, maybe I didn't deal with certain other things. Like that aspect of, being a child and going through that, you see it from a different angle. But being an adult now, where you realize life is precious, you only get just one, and you realize, you're so far removed from your own culture, and you're so far removed from the dangers of being around that type of environment. It hits you like, wow, okay, if something happens to my mother while I'm with her, cannot forgive myself. It was honestly one of those, I don't want to call it self-sabotage, but those thoughts that come to mind, like, wow, like if my mom gets arrested, if because those things are highly likely to happen, just because of what we had in Rwanda growing up, or just because of her position, or just because of the previous political issues that had happened that she had nothing to do with, but that were present. So now it's more like, okay, so one, we don't tell anybody that we're going. Two, once we get there, and then what? Staying with family, but it's kind of like one of those things like, okay, who do you stay with? What, we were going to go with a group of missionaries, but then we would have to go travel by ourselves to one of her nieces' house, stay there, probably maybe for a day or two. So we were going to have to continually move so that nobody could track us, in a sense that, like,
sounds just like when you were there last.
Yeah,
except people are trying to kill you.
Yeah, exactly. And this time too, it was more like, okay, there's almost a bounty on my mom's head because of who she is and who she was in Rwanda. She was a principal, she was a teacher, and people like that, once you go back, it's one of those things that if you're highly educated and you're highly knowledgeable of a lot of things, people want to get rid of you on the best, in the best way possible. That's not going to cause a political uprise. And so, so that's kind of what we were facing. And after my mom talked to us, and she was like, listen, I have no interest in going. It's not that I don't love my family. It's not that I don't value my family, but there's a lot more that I have to lose than really gain. Because again, she felt that if she would go back, she would only be able to go back for maybe 10 to 15 days.
Yeah, it's not a lot of time.
Right. That's not a lot of time to see people who you haven't seen almost in 25 years. And then on top of that, what can you really do for them? Like, so when you take the emotions out of it and when you really look at the practical standpoint of it, what can I really do for somebody who I haven't seen for 30 some odd, or for like 25 some odd years? They're in a financial strain. I can't financially support them. So for me to go and show my face, what does that really do for them? It's kind of almost like, so you just came here to show your face? Like, yeah. We get it. You missed us. We missed you too. But once you leave, we're still going to be here. We're still going to be living this life that we live. We're still going to be struggling. We're still going to be hungry. We're still going to be, starving. So what's the point of you showing up? So it was kind of one of those things that she also thought of and also feared, that I don't want to go back and resent my family, in a sense.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
So she doesn't want to go back, period,
right.
Kind of thing. That was like her decision. Like
right.
It got too close.
Yeah.
You guys started talking about it. You're going to take me, and then boom. No,
right.
We're not doing it.
Right.
But for you weren't planning on it. You were just given the opportunity, like, hey, we want to send our mom over there.
Right.
You might go along.
Mm-hmm.
So what did that do for you? Did that
honestly
put up walls for you now where you're like, man, no, I don't want to go back, or
the
I
funny
do?
The funny thing is now is that I understand that there's some unresolved things that I'm still, working through. For me, it's one of those things, okay, I recognize that there's an issue. Oh, great. Okay, now I can fix the issue that I can recognize because now I see that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So it gives me better hope. Okay, well, once I work through these things right here, then that'll mean I'll be ready to go, maybe next opportunity that comes up. So it's one of those things that I actually look forward to working on those issues.
The emotional ones.
Right, yeah, like the emotional issues and that I guess I can't call it secondhand PTSD. It's like the secondary PTSD, or I don't know what you call it. I don't know what the psychology people call it, but
it's trauma, man.
Yeah, trauma. So working through that trauma and actually facing it and actually going back and reliving it and making sure that I'm okay to go back, I think makes me feel much better, much more comfortable about wanting to go back, because I would be doing it for myself. It wouldn't be because there's I won't be doing it for somebody else. It'd just be more from my own closure or my own reopening. So, or yeah. So I don't know what you call it.
You might not know till you get there.
Right. So, and that's also another thing. I was like, okay, because I talked to my brother. He, because he went back in 2011, and he told me, he's like, dude, listen, I got back. I was messed up. He was like, I had to go see counseling for weeks because for him it was, once he touched down, it brought back so many familiar memories, but also unfamiliar memories, because he was 10. So you're looking at the place where you think but you don't. It's like a far off land, and so you're literally reliving a lot of the stuff because you're walking the same streets. You're seeing the same houses. You're seeing the attempt to rebuild. But then at nighttime, he said that he would literally sleep with all his clothes on, all his bags packed, with his passport in his pocket, because he never wanted to re-experience what happened, where if something happens, his whole entire idea was, I want to be able to get out of here. I literally want to be able to leave immediately without. So he had literally separated his bags, as in, if something happens, I'm taking this book bag, everything in it, that's important. All that other stuff can stay. So he already had that escape plan in his head. So he said, he was like, I didn't get no sleep, because he really couldn't, because because the way that it's structured, I guess now, or then when he went, is they have military presence, which is great, but for him it brought back a lot of bad memories. So you literally have military personnel walking around with guns.
Yeah.
And it's great because it protects the local people, but also understanding that when people talk and when people see an unfamiliar face, questions start coming up. So for him, it was more like, okay, I gotta get out of here. So he left. He ended up leaving. I think he said he ended up leaving earlier than what he intended to leave because he's like, it's only a matter of time before somebody's like, hey, what are you doing here? Like,
Yeah.
you're not supposed to be here.
That's so interesting because
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh man, I want Theo to go back. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. You know, I'm clapping, I'm cheering. I'm
Right.
like, I want to go with you. I want to get you back. But all this stuff that you've had to go through
Right.
from that standpoint of it is, you know, I don't think that, and you might not have thought some of it until it became
No.
almost a reality.
Right, right.
And then, you know, just hearing that part of your story that recently happened, it's like, and how many people here that are around us that we just live around?
Right.
Kids that either, you know, have parental abuse or family abuse or had horrible experiences or, you know, in foster care, aged out or had all the experiences, and they stay living in the same area where they've always been.
Right.
And
Man.
don't ever get any kind of counseling for it, and then grow up to be adults and then have kids, and you have cycles of, it's just,
Not gonna
you don't
lie,
think
man.
about those things, man, sometimes.
You really honestly don't. And I think that's where that conversation starter needs to happen, right? Like, because we're talking about, hey, you know, how do you talk to people? How do you even initiate a conversation? How do you even actually approach somebody who has gone through traumatic events and now they're here, but which angle do you come at from? And I think for people in our local area, it's understanding the culture and understanding their background and their upbringing, because that will help you but once again, in order for you to do that, you got to be able to have a conversation with them. And so providing a platform that they can talk freely about what has happened, I think maybe setting a time aside for kind of like this, like having an open mic session, like, hey, come and tell your story.
Yeah. Which is the safest thing, I think.
Right.
It's the hardest thing,
Right.
I think, for people to talk about because there's a vulnerability there of,
Right.
will I be accepted, or, you know, someone really going to care? But at the same time, somebody, you know, people can't argue with your story.
Right.
They might not like it, or maybe they say, oh, that didn't happen. But if you know it did happen and it's true, it is what it is. And that is what we can share with each other. It's like, tell me about your life. So, you know, I get asked like, well, how do you talk to people about certain stuff? You know, obviously a lot of things they're talking about are like religion or beliefs or
Right.
politics, or there's just certain things. If people say the word, all of a sudden
It triggers.
it triggers
Yeah,
something. You can't
yeah.
even have a conversation about it. If I say the word, you know, racist or police shooting a black man,
Right.
or a political party or Trump,
It
or
triggers,
abortion
yeah.
or immigration, wall,
Right.
whatever it is, all of a sudden there's so many people that immediately, I am not in a sane mind to even
Right.
have a conversation with you, because how can you think that?
And that's crazy.
looking at you based on your viewpoint of that,
Right.
instead of as a person, you've been through stuff that, what if I understood where you were coming from to have that point of view?
Right.
And that's where I challenge people, and you can kind of walk through with that with me as well. It's like, that's the starting point of, man, if you can't have conversations with people about stuff and you get so crazy about it, okay, well, a lot of that's on you. It's not just because you have the right point of view and the right belief. It's because something is triggered within you that is not allowing you to engage another person and just find out what they're like, what
Right.
their story is, and have a conversation without going crazy, instead of trying to convince them
Man,
of
that's-
something.
That's crazy. So I think in order for you to be able to even bring that up, you have to settle that within yourself as well. So
And how do people do it? That's the big thing. It's
Right,
just like, hey,
right.
go do it. Okay. If you don't have tools to fix something, then you're
Then-
not going to get fixed.
right. So I think again, taking the so okay. One suggestion would be we all have a Facebook, Instagram. We all have social media to some degree, right? And it's funny because more people are active on social media. More people post often. More people post maybe too personal of things on social media. But maybe if we took the time to not actually be on social media for the drama part of it, but take the time and actually look at somebody who has opposite views and understanding, and keep our own views and our own biases in check, to be able to understand that person, like that right there, initiating conversation. Maybe you know just even off of social media, I think that would be one great way for somebody to start. But before you even get to that point of initiating a conversation, you got to have that conversation with yourself. Like, how do I view racism? How do I view like the current political climate? How do I view that way? You ask yourself the same questions that you would ask somebody else, and question those answers. Because once you do that, then you're able to say, okay, there's a false thinking process in there somewhere, because you can't always be right. So I gotta be kind of default on, I gotta be wrong somewhere or another. So let me go ahead and question my own beliefs and question my own thinking, not necessarily question your own faith but question your own belief, as in, okay, well, I don't believe in, such and such. But why do I not believe in that? Is that because I was taught that, or is that because it's the right thing, or is that, so do your own research. That way, when you ask somebody, then you're also willing to take their perspective of it, because now you're saying, you know what, you're right. Like, I had to check my own self. I had to, I had to ask those same tough questions to myself. But again, it's kind of like what we said last time, it's people getting out of their own comfort zone, and people being able to actually say, you know what, that person looks like they're having a hard day, they're having a tough time. Let me step out of my own comfort zone and actually go say hi.
Yep. Yeah, when people ask me about it, it's like, okay, well, this is all good when we do our group stuff, or we talk through these kind of things, or people listen to some of the podcast stuff, and like, it's really good. Like, you can have conversations with somebody, microphone that's safe, and that's the whole goal of the podcast. But like, how do you do that in real life? And, two of the things that I say is, do you have accountability to anybody where they can check you on this stuff?
Right.
Where you have somebody that you don't just go to when you have a question to ask. You allow somebody else in your life to ask you hard questions. Like, hey man, have you, you told me you're having struggle talking to this type of person, or judging them, or being around them. Like, how you doing with that? Hey, have you,
that's tough.
I mean, if you're a white person, you have only white friends, and you admit that to somebody, it's be like, all right, man, well, ask me, did I talk to anybody that is black or Latino or Asian this week?
Have I taken,
have you taken an initiative to just, to do that, whether it's at a store or at, at school or your work, whatever.
But man,
and have accountability to that person, so that you do
tough,
it. Because it's hard to be accountable to yourself.
It really is.
Because then it's, okay, do you mean what you say?
Right.
You can say things to yourself all the time, that you're not this, you are that, you want to grow, you want to do this, but if you're not accountable to anybody, then it doesn't matter. So that's one. And the other one too is just, what's your motive or your agenda when you do talk with somebody.
Right. What's the intent? Right.
Yeah. So if something comes up you don't like, and you get defensive or you get angry or something happens, what is the intent of this conversation with somebody? Is it, now I have to change their mind? Now I just have to find a way to like them because they don't believe in the same religion or have a different political view than I do?
Right.
What is my motive for even having this conversation, and why can't I if I can't do it? So is it just to understand the person, get to know them better, and care about them as a human being, or is it because I want them to think, believe, or change in some way to how I am?
So I guess maybe you can even approach it from this standpoint. Am I asking these questions for my own understanding, or am I asking these questions to just ask them to just kind of get that thing off my back, like, oh, I need to talk to somebody different? I think once you understand, or once you ask a question for understanding's sake, you listen different. And I think because the way we are wired as humans, if it doesn't immediately, I guess, benefit us in a way, then we're not up to doing it, because again, our brains are made to keep us safe and to protect us. So to literally cuddle us in a sense of, ooh, don't do that. That's gonna take you out of your comfort zone, and we don't want you going out of your comfort zone because it's not safe. And so being able to override your own thinking in your own brain and saying, okay, I understand it's not safe. I understand that it's not in my comfort zone, but I still want to do it anyway. I think that's, again, what differentiates certain people, missionaries, or people that volunteer or even are part of their own nonprofit, like what you do, it's not everybody can do that. Like it takes a certain type of mentality to be able to step out of your own comfort zone and go be with somebody who's hurting. Like it really does, because it ain't for everybody, and that's fine. But understanding, okay, this ain't for me, because then that would, help you possibly get your intent across a whole lot better. But that's a tough question, Nick. I'm not gonna lie. That is a tough question, because there's so many different ways you could go with it. I was reading this past week about just thinking in general, but like the average person thinks from has up from 12,000 to 66,000 thoughts a day, right? And so, and 80% of those thoughts are negative. 95% of those thoughts are repetitive. So if you are continuously in your own head about what your biases are, right? You're literally replaying certain things about your misconception about somebody, and 85% of those thoughts that you have about somebody are going to be negative. So it's like overriding that and saying, okay, listen, I get it. Brain wants to keep me safe, but that homeless dude, across the street, looks like he's hurting. Like, I get it. It's not safe to just approach a random person, because you're taught stay away from, stranger danger. But it's like, yo, there's a need, there's pain. Like, let me step out of my own comfort zone and go speak to that person, because maybe they got something else might be going on. So it's honestly just being able to actually do that. That's
It's
the
hard,
difficult part. That is a difficult part.
Well, and a lot of reasons for me wanting to have these conversations and do this too is just to challenge people that say they believe certain things, especially
Right.
from the faith community or the
Right.
church, and coming
Right.
from a pastor background of saying these things and this is what we're about as our church, or we're about it on Sunday, but then people get out in the real world and live their lives during the week, and sometimes it doesn't translate. If I can be nice about it,
Right.
it doesn't translate very well at all. And it's putting your faith into action of like, do you really love your neighbor as yourself? Bottom line,
Right.
do you? And man, it's a brutally hard question to
That
ask,
is
because
that is a brutally hard,
we have
question to ask.
opportunities all the time,
Right.
and it's not about, well, I have to give all my money away every single day
Right.
to feel better about myself. It's okay, people are hurting and I'm not seeing it. I don't want to engage. It's the comfort thing again. And I don't know how to do it, because honestly, we're not taught how to do it very well
Right.
either at church, of like,
No,
hey, this is how you're supposed to believe and what you're supposed to do. But actually, when you get out
this
in
is
the
how you
street
apply it.
and out of your house, all of a sudden you're not equipped to do it.
Right.
And why is that?
Oh, man, listen, I'm not a scientist, but
Neither of us have any.
But honestly,
Any of
the
that.
best way to do anything, I find this to be the easiest way for me anyway, is to just attempt it. Like, just take that step. And I don't want to say to quote unquote just do it, because that simplifies it. But again, it's you having to take the step back and questioning your own false beliefs about certain things. Yeah, I get it. Like, being raised in a church, you're taught certain things. Being raised in a Christian home, you're taught certain things. Even if you weren't raised in a Christian home, you're taught certain things. But then you go out, out of that environment, and you realize, that's not the reality, though. Like, not, oh, homeless people are alcoholics or druggies. Like, wait a minute. It's like, once you realize that we're all, or one decision away from being homeless, then it makes it real. Like, oh, wow, that was just somebody who unfortunately got messed up in a wrong crowd, or made a critical error, or somebody else made that error and now they're homeless. Then once you understand it from that point, it's like, okay, not all homeless people are druggies or alcoholics. Some people are just literally just, wow, like they just were in a bad spot. And so when you come from a certain belief background, you're just like, I get it. You know, Jesus talked to all sorts of people. I get it. Yeah, he you know, he had dinner with you know, the impoverished and all that, but you know, he was Jesus, so you know, he's able to do that. But then you're just like, okay, well, what makes him different from me? Because he actually understood what compassion was. And I think once you understand what compassion is, and maybe I'm going at it from a completely different angle, but once you understand what compassion is, then you're actually able to apply it. Because compassion isn't something that, compassion is learned. So you gotta unlearn a lot of your own beliefs and relearn different ways to actually do stuff, talk to people, feel like. But the question you ask is pretty hard. How do I apply it? How do I and maybe we're overcomplicating it in this conversation. Maybe it might just be just as easy as taking that deep breath and actually stepping out and saying, okay, hey, how you doing? You know, how's life going for you? For me, it's easier to do because people, you know, as a barber, people come to you, so I'm able to have those conversations because I have that person full attention and personal space with, you know, for like 45 minutes to an hour. But you know, for somebody else who's like, you know, works in an office space somewhere that doesn't really interact with people out on the street a lot, I would say start talking to your own family. Start there.
That can be some of the harder conversations.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, once you talk to your family about those hard conversations, it's a whole lot easier to go talk to a stranger about their situation. I mean, talk to your so-called friends, because you'll find out that their lives isn't as glamorous as they post on social media, or their lives aren't as great as maybe they said that they were. There's a lot of baggage that they're carrying that they don't maybe want to burden you with until you ask them. And I think let's first start at home and then go out. There's this thing called, you know, in the military they call 525s. I'm sorry, 510s and 25s. So when you're, you know, out on patrol, whatever, you know, in wherever you are, and you're looking for traps, or you're looking for IEDs, you look 5 meters ahead of you, secure those 5 meters, look 10 meters ahead of you, secure those 10 meters, and then you look 25 meters ahead of you. So then that means you're safe. That means that's being cleared. So you cleared the 5 meters, you cleared 10 meters, you cleared 25. So in the same way, clear home, clear your family, then clear everybody else. Because until you have that tough conversation with your sibling, or with your cousin, or with that person that's in your family that nobody likes, but you finally understand that, hey, their life wasn't all that great growing up, then you start, oh, okay, so not everybody's like, you know, everybody who is in your situation or who looks like you didn't necessarily have a great childhood, and maybe that's why you act the way that you do. So starting there, I think would honestly be your best bet, to me anyway.
Yeah. I mean, you do have to find a way to be honest with yourself and figure out, do you have the tools to actually do that and have those conversations with people, and admit to yourself where you're judgmental, right, prejudiced, too strongly opinionated, whatever the verbs or you want to use are for that kind of stuff too. But I think the other thing is also, you know, people are fearful of conversations. Like, I can't do that yet. You know, actions speak a lot too. Right. So serving other people, especially people that maybe you haven't served before, or you are normally around, and then by not just serving them out of pity or anything, but just like coming alongside them, doing stuff with them or for them or whatever. And when you serve people, you get near them. Right. When you, you know, we've talked about it before, you know, empathy requires proximity. Right. So you get close to somebody, maybe it's not even through conversation yet, but you're just saying like, hey, I want to use my time, which we all have the same amount of time, and it's all precious to all of us. I want to use some of my time to be around you during your time. And doing something with you, for you, whatever it is, whether it's a nonprofit or helping out with somebody or a neighbor, whatever that looks like. And then it's much more natural to have conversations as opposed to me just being like, oh, man, Theo, I really need to go find a black guy this week to talk to.
Right.
There's a lot of pressure on me here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just like, kind of awkwardly trying to do those kind of things. But being purposeful with that.
Yeah. I think that's, unfortunately, I don't want to keep bringing the church up.
Well, you're the guest. You can do whatever you want.
I don't want to keep bringing up the church into this, but when we do that, maybe the downside also is that is all that we just do. And we consider that, well, hey, I did my good deed for the day. I'm good. I passed out, some chips to a homeless dude that we were doing a homeless drive for.
And then left and never came back.
Yeah. So it's maybe even going further than just doing it once, but again, being repetitive in that action.
Oh, I agree.
Right.
You need to do it. You need to do it multiple times.
Right, and just make it happen. Like, that's why you going to Rwanda 6 times. To me, that's funny and crazy at the same time, because sometimes you go on one mission trip and you come back off of that high and you're just like, yo, I just went to Africa. Like, I went to Africa. And we built a school, I think. I don't know what we built, but they said it was a school. And, we did a lot of amazing things. We hung out with the people for like 10 days, and that was cool. But then that's all you did. You literally went for 10 days. You did what we quote unquote just suggested, proximity. You went and you had that empathy for that time being. And then once the high wore off, you kind of just back to your regular life. Like, you no longer not necessarily stay in contact with people, but you no longer even go back and write them like, hey, how you doing? How was that issue that you were having when I was there?
Yeah.
But I think that's what's so interesting about what you've done, though, being able to go 5 times, 6 times. Like, I'm sure you saw people who 6 years ago were probably in a different place in life than they are now, or you literally got to watch certain kids grow up, and certain families get bigger, or unfortunately certain families get smaller, or have been able to stay consistent and say, hey, y'all were doing this one thing whenever I was here 2 years ago. How's that going?
Yeah, that's been the cool part of this experience, is that we don't go to fix anything. We don't go as, the white American saviors to make your lives better and build something, feel better about it, take a picture and leave. Right. It is spending time with the same people, mutually growing. And we go over to learn. That's the first thing that we try to do when we go over there. It's learn from people. Engage in their stories. What have you been through? What has the country been through? Share our stories, as a group, but personally too, and invest in each other with our lives. And doing that multiple times is why a lot of this stuff is happening, and seeing how beneficial that is. Right. Not coming in to fix your problem and throwing guilt money at something or feeling good about yourself. It's I come in to learn as much from you as you're expecting to learn from me. And that's really powerful, because you do actually learn a lot. So again, taking that kind of philosophy with just where you live now in your life, from that neighbor you don't know yet, or that person that's different skin color, different gender, or different whatever, beliefs, feelings, sexual preference, whatever it is, saying, I don't really know a whole lot about you, and I have thoughts of what I think you are and people like you are, but spending time and and actually being in your in your space, in your time, in your zone. And space is the key word. Yeah. Because usually, like, our lives, we protect and have comfort in our space as much as we can, and then our home is also our place of refuge and space and comfort. So, all right, if I do anything outside in the world and it's great, but then I'm gonna go hide in my refuge at home and only let people in that I feel comfortable with, that I want around my kids, whatever it is. Instead of, where I believe people of certain faith, that I believe,
Right.
like, it's not supposed to be that. Like, you're supposed to welcome people that are hurting into your space, that are different than you, into your space.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I do need time in my home where it's just me and my family. But, like, I believe kids that don't have homes that are in foster care
Right.
should be in my house.
Wow.
Not only to help them and benefit them, but that actually
Right. That
helps
that-
us too.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And it hurts,
yeah,
and it's
yeah,
really hard.
Yeah.
And we need seasons of breaks in between,
Mhm.
those kind of things. But that's needed for us to grow as well.
Right. Like, it's funny. This is probably like a typical my dad's story, right? It's got a call from my mom a while back. She was like, "Theo, you wouldn't believe what your dad did today." I was like, "No, well, yeah, you're right. I probably wouldn't believe it, but go ahead." So I guess Dad had gone to the church because he goes there. He's got his office there, and he prepared his messages there. And he goes up to the church, walks into his office, and he's doing his stuff, and he went into the sanctuary for something, and he seen a guy just sleeping in a sanctuary. This homeless guy had broken into the church, and it was Ohio, so it's cold during the wintertime. So I guess the guy found his way in, and so and this is the point where it made my mom mad. She was like, "You won't believe it. Instead of calling the cops, you know what he did? He just sat there and talked to him." I said, "Mom, would you expect anything else though?" She's like, "Well, yeah, you're right. I don't expect nothing else." But she's like, "What was he thinking? Like, that's not safe. Like, that's I mean." Her concern is equally legit, because it's you never know with the recent events, churches being burnt down, shootings happening at church. You don't know who's walking into the church and what they want. But my dad is so we sometimes think like, Dad, you're either like not like living reality, or the reality that you're living in is probably where we should be living to. Right, so it's kind of like it teeter totters, right? And so we're talking about that event, and even the conversation now is like, I wonder how many of us would have called the cops out of reaction of fear versus responded with compassion and said, "Hey, I get it. It's cold. Let's talk." Like my dad's whole mission was, I wonder if I can get this guy to come back to church. like that was the whole entire thing. So once he got done talking to him, and he contacted the other pastor, and the other pastor showed up, and then they took him to a homeless shelter or find him a place to be. Like that was something that I still look back as a weird translation of what compassion really is, though. It's seeing a situation and reacting in love versus in fear. And I think that's where there's so many little facets that we can go down, but reacting in love versus reacting in fear will keep you grounded in compassion, to be honest. Because even in Rwanda right now, it's the choice to forgive somebody. You're not forgiving somebody out of fear. You're forgiving somebody out of fear, out of love, because it's easy to hate. I mean, shoot, you're thinking negative thoughts all the time, so it's easy to hate. It is so easy. But once you override your mind and say, you know what, I'd rather love somebody than fear them in a way that breeds ignorance to their situation. Like, to me, that's the ultimate meaning of compassion, and actually being able to feel that and being able to give that is difficult, but you have to be in a certain place mentally and spiritually to be able to do that, because like we said, not everybody can do that. Not everybody is there in a place where they can look at themselves and say, hey, you're messing up, or check themselves, or even have somebody else be accountable to them, saying, hey, did you talk to somebody different today? Did you I don't know, say do what you said you were gonna do, which was, once a week you're gonna go volunteer for an hour at the mission house, or you were gonna do a homeless drive, or you were gonna, even for me, it's I write certain things down so I can mentally like see them and physically see them, like working with the homeless, like giving free haircuts to the homeless. Like that's something that I'm looking into doing.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk about that right now. You said writing it down, checking it. Like, let's just point it at you.
Right.
Not to put the spotlight on you,
Right,
but it is on you. Like, so where are you? We've talked a little bit kind of some of your dreams of the previous podcast, and you and I have talked about giving back. I've got these gifts. What have you done? What do you want to do? Where do you want to grow? And a lot of these things that we're talking about.
Right. So a couple weeks ago, me and my wife went to a back to school drive up in South Carolina. We did free haircuts for the kids who came for the book bag drive. A lot of those parents, they couldn't afford haircuts for 2 or 3 boys. I mean, it's expensive. So doing it for free.
That's why I cut my kids here.
Right.
Seriously.
Listen, it gets pricey.
I know it does,
right?
man.
So it's like just being able to do that and giving back to that community, and then coming back and saying, hey, like I want to do something with the homeless veteran community. So I talked to my wife. My wife was like, hey, there's a great opportunity coming up in September 14th, where I guess they're calling it a stand down. I don't know the exact name for it, but I'm going to go set up a station and give out free haircuts to whoever shows up. So those are things that I have to keep accountable to myself, because that's what I want to, that with the gifts that God has given me, that's what I want to do to give back. I get it. Creating a business is, having a business, the business is for you to be able to make money, grow your business, gain whatever. But going beyond that and saying it's not even about the money, it's not about the popularity, it's not about the notoriety. It's just literally about, because my family's been helped so much, Nick, like I can't even, like, not giving back or not giving some, like it's almost like I'm not giving out of fear, but I understand also what my family has been given. So it's hard for me not to give back. It's almost like that conscience that says, oh, all right, Theo, so now you think you're too good to give back. Like, who in the world do you think you are? Like, so it's like, like, do you realize where you came from? And it keeps me humble and it keeps me grounded, because it's coming here with nothing and being able to say, wow, I've lived in America for the last 20 some odd years and not really struggle in a way that Americans really struggle. Like that to me has been nothing but short of America, because that's people who have given back to me or who have given to me and my family.
Yeah. And what's unique about your opportunity too, we'll wrap it up here in a few minutes, is that you're a barber and you see different kinds of people all the time.
Right.
And if, everyone, you follow Theo on Instagram, Facebook, where he's at, you service different people, man, different races, different ages, and you have the opportunity to really find out what people are like, just sitting in your chair and not just, hey, I'm going to cut and, what do you think about the weather? But like, find out what someone's life is like a little bit, and then vice versa, where you can give that back too. And that's a really special opportunity that most people don't have, where it's like, hey, they're going to sit there for 30 minutes and I can like, really engage in their story.
I'm literally in their personal space. So I tell barbers this all the time. I say, listen, what you have and what gifts that God has given you is allowing people to open up their personal space to you. Like, you don't understand that it's not normal for one dude to be standing within 5 inches of of another dude, right? Like, and for like an hour, and it's normal.
That's another reason why I don't get haircuts.
Personal space.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you are allowing somebody to literally be in your bubble. You are allowing somebody to literally like run their hands through your hair, which I'm bald, so in that case it's my beard, right? Like you are allowing people with sharp instruments to literally be that close to you. And sometimes some of my clients fall asleep in my chair. And to me, it's funny because I consider that a compliment, because in order for you to fall asleep, you got to be either dead tired or really, really comfortable.
Yeah.
Right? Or have narcolepsy. I don't know, whichever, right? But when somebody falls asleep in my chair, I chuckle to myself like, wow, thank you for trusting me. Like, you trust me that much that you literally, like, either I bore you and you fall asleep, which is fine too, but you trust me that much that you allow me to be in your personal space and you can close your eyes. It's I don't know. It's one of those things. I'm just like, wow, God, is that a blessing or a cursing? I don't know what it is, but I'm gonna choose to take it as a blessing. But the same thing that you said, being in somebody's personal space and being able to share their space and their time with them, you know, I literally get to talk to them about certain things that they sometimes don't feel comfortable sharing at home. So they bring it to the barbershop, and you know, and they talk about it with me, or they are either going to a wedding, they're going to a funeral, they just lost somebody they love, and you know, hey, listen, you know, I just got some bad news. You know, my mother died. Like, I'm going up to her funeral Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Nick, I don't know how to approach that. I don't even know how to. So I just stand there in their space, like, not give a solution, not give an answer, just being present alone is one of those things that starts a conversation. Like, hey man, thanks for talking to me.
Yeah.
I didn't say much. I just said, man, you know, my condolences. You know, hopefully you and your family have a safe trip, or thanks for coming in. I don't know, because it's just one of those things. It's like, what do you say? Had a client that had a cancer scare, and he came and got a haircut because he was on his way to his appointment. Like, he was leaving that next day, and so, you know, I talked to him. You know, he felt pretty healthy, pretty good. Comes back 2 weeks later, and you know, we're talking, and then I ask him, hey man, how was your appointment? He stopped. Like, he literally, like, wow, I can't believe you remember that. I was like, yeah, of course I remember that, because I mean, it was a big thing. You know, how did it turn out? He was like, well, you know, everything came negative, so I was like, wow, that's amazing, bro. Like, thank God that you're still alive. Thank God that you don't got cancer. And he was like, the whole entire time, he was like, you remember that? I was like, yeah, I remember. It was a significant moment in your life.
Yeah.
Of course I remember that. And so, like, because I was listening with the intent of being there, not the intent of providing a solution. I can't provide a solution to cancer.
Yeah.
I can't provide a solution to death. Like, the only thing that I can give is my time and my space to just be able for that person to be free to share what they want to share. So that's another thing that people maybe overthink, that I got to go say a whole lot of stuff, or I got to go do X and Y, Z. No, you really don't.
Just be there.
Yeah, you really honestly don't, because sometimes all that is required from you is your time to be present.
Well, what I would say to that conversation you've had with that, you know, the guy lost his mom, when you're in those situations, whether it's somebody loses somebody or they just bring up something, mm-hmm. and you get stuck. We all have those moments like, man, what do I say? How do I react to this? Whether it's something like really deep and personal, or it's something that makes you angry and you don't know how to respond to
right.
it. One of the things you can always go back to is like, wow, man, I haven't experienced that before because I have my mom. Mm-hmm. Or like, man, I don't have those same beliefs on that issue, or I've never really thought of things kind of that way. Can you help me understand where you're coming from, or explain to me like what that's like? And just giving somebody the platform to explain what they just brought up, whether it's a hard issue or just an emotional one.
Right.
Saying like, it's like, wow, man, my mom's still alive. Just what's that been like for you?
Right.
Or what kind of memories do you have? Or something like that to just allow them. You're just giving the opportunity.
Just giving them a platform for them to be able to share.
The opportunity to share.
Yeah.
Or if you have experience with it, or you have common ground there, then you say, oh, wow, man, I've kind of experienced something similar like that, because I lost this, or I believe this, I went through this. What's it kind of been like for you? Because I'd love to share, my side of it as well. So just looking for those simple opportunities where somebody provides something, you're not sure where to go because you don't need something deep to say. You just provide an opportunity to have a little bit of a conversation or share. And I do want to kind of wrap it up with, I think it's neat that you're here, you're connected with us, and that you have a place to do that. So if someone is literally listening to this podcast and they're like, man, I don't know how to have these conversations. I would love to talk to somebody like Theo about whatever, Rwanda, race, escaping genocide, or just having a conversation with someone that's different than me. You can tell them right now, we'll put that on the screen on social media.
Right.
This is where you go to follow Theo, or you can literally set up a haircut appointment with him in Pooler/Savannah, Georgia, and go do that.
Right.
Like that could actually happen. And you're willing, like, hey, come on in because I want to have those conversations with you while I'm cutting your hair.
Right.
Because you're a pretty awesome barber as well.
I appreciate that, Nick.
You're legit, man. So tell people like where you're at and how they can get in touch with you and get their haircut, man.
So you can find me on Instagram. I go by Theo _ the Smiling Barber, or you can go on Facebook and follow me at Theo Brown-T. I try to keep it simple, but honestly, for me, providing a platform for all my clients to share their stories or to even share their thoughts, I help them understand it's like this is a judgment-free zone. Mm-hmm. It's like how you came in here is one, you're gonna look different when you leave. Better. But my hope is that you also get a different perspective on whatever issue that ails you, right? And so being able to be in that environment and give that to people, to me is one of the best things I can possibly do. So that's also why I also created the podcast Beyond the Clippers, because I wanted to be able to give people the opportunity to share their story, kind of like this, but like share their story without the fear of judgment. Mm-hmm. And I think once you help somebody understand that you're not a judgment-driven individual, they're able to be open to you and they're able to share their stories with you. So it honestly just that's pretty much it. I'm sorry I didn't go into as detailed as you wanted to, but being able to provide a space for them. Like if you book an appointment with me and you honestly want to talk about something, hey, I'll go ahead and extend that time out. That way we can actually, have a moment to chat. Like that'd be great. I would love to hear from people. I like hearing people's thoughts. I like hearing people's ideas or stories, because to me it helps me grow as an individual. And hopefully once we share a common background or something like, we can talk back and forth, kind of like how me and you met. It was weird because social media stalked you.
You did.
Because I literally, I don't know if they know the story or not, but really quick, I'm going through Instagram. I put a search, in a search bar, I put Rwanda in there. And that's Rwanda, if somebody didn't understand that. So I put it in a search bar, and all these pictures come up, and I hit recent pictures, and then I'm flipping through. I'm like, oh, this guy has a Rwanda. This white guy has a Rwanda flag, and is standing up on the top of a mountain. I was like, wow, that's interesting. Let me click on him, because you look like a backpacker. Like you just look like, oh, I backpack all over Europe, all over Africa, whatever. And so I click on your picture, and I'm like, oh shoot, he's with Compassion Christians. Oh, that's the church I go to. So I write you, and then when you get back, you hit me back. I was like, oh my gosh, hey, when you're in town, please come and stop in for a haircut. And the first time I seen him, I was like, oh, that's the infamous Nick Schultz. Schultzy time. That's him.
Infamous. Yes.
And so, I had a great time. And just like that, being able to have that conversation and being able to open up that space, like allowed you to come into my space for me to be able to meet somebody who just recently came from Rwanda. Like to me, I was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible.
You were pretty hyped up.
Yeah, I was. I'm still hyped up. Like, I mean, because it's not every day that I meet people like you. So it's to me, that was a win-win. You know, free haircut in the story. Like, you know, shoot, if somebody else could out there create a podcast called Story Time and Coffee, I don't know, whatever it is that you like to do, like, like get that out. Like for me, I want to do haircuts and story time, like where somebody literally like I set up a studio like this, have a barber chair, they come in for a haircut, but their only payment is for them to tell me a story about their life. Like, to me, that is the ultimate high. Like, if I could do that, if anybody who's listening to this can make that happen, I'll be glad to host that, because I would love to hear the stories.
But just so we're clear, if you do go to Theo's barbershop, like, you do have to pay him money. You can tell him a story too, but he does need to get paid.
I do need to get paid. I will set a special time for aside for that story, you know, in that time, because, like, to me, like, if I can help one person in my lifetime, bro, like, I'm happy.
Yeah, man. Well, you've been good for me too, man. I think it's super mutual, and you know, it just happened because you were looking,
right?
I was looking, and we were willing, and those kind of relationships can happen,
right?
So, you know, I really appreciate you being on here, and
absolutely, man. I appreciate you guys having me back.
We'll get your information up there too, so people can
Awesome.
follow you,
Awesome.
social media, your podcast, and also, man, get some appointments set so you can.
Yeah, come on in. By the way, I have not released a podcast yet for my season 2. Lagging a little bit behind, so forgive me. But more podcasts to come up, including hopefully this one. So yeah.
Cool, man. Well, we're looking forward to it, and you know, just to challenge everybody before we go too is just think about who you can move toward this
Right.
week. So be moving towards somebody, especially if they're different than you, and you can all grow that way. So
Awesome.
thanks for being here, Theo.
Appreciate you.
Quinn, thanks for producing, man.
Yep.
And thank you, City Church, for hosting. And we'll catch y'all later. Peace.
Later.